what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, either that or
Hotel. So it's 10:18. 10:18:19. AC. Did I just misspell your name? No.
A lot of people put an N at the end of my last name, but
No, I got it.
you got it right. Yeah.
There's one.
Okay.
Hang on. I'll just let me focus.
I'll go to the far one first.
Okay. Did I write 10? I wrote 10. That's 11.
It doesn't really tell you that, but you can correct it just so good name measure.
I'll give you this pen.
Oh, that's right.
I don't know where the other one went.
Yeah. Yes.
Soda pop?
Oh yeah. Those.
Do the Mentos volcano. All right. Well, we have to wait for the. Maybe I can get a note well up there.
Yeah.
Refresh. Yeah.
I wonder if you have to clear the cache or something. I don't know.
I don't know. I did a refresh.
But will that? Just a second.
It's not. Yeah. We had an upload of a new thing, and it's not refreshing. Is there a different way I can get to the meeting materials?
from the data.
I mean,
Instead of the agenda meeting, the data tracker.
Did I miss the data tracker?
worst case.
Well, at least we have some extra time on the agenda.
Yeah, worst case.
Every fucking time, this is a problem. It would actually work better when we just use our backs. Maybe not for us. This is for us. I'm screwed around. Okay, this here.
Okay, that's
Okay. Okay. So this is the LSR working group. Did you include a note well on this?
I did not. We can do note well by memory.
Yeah, but we have to show.
I know.
Okay, so. Oh my God. Do you know where to find it?
No, I mean, I usually it comes up.
Oh, not well. Yeah, I'm not well.
There we are.
Yeah. All right. So here we go. The required. Wow. That fits on a slide still? Yeah, so read all of this. I think there's a short version. We could sing along. Okay. Has everyone noted well?
Just keep in mind that if you know of any IPR that applies to any of these drafts, even if you're not the author or a contributor, you're obliged by participating in the meeting to let it be known.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Okay.
Is it going to do weird scrolling?
Yeah,
Let's see.
Is there
It's a
way-
PDF, isn't it?
This guy. Okay, you're good.
Okay. And I'll be able to do it?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, welcome to Singapore, everybody. I'm going to go through the status here. We don't have any RFCs since Montreal, but we have a lot of stuff. There's the segment routing drafts are coming all as part of a cluster. So a lot of these are already done or almost done. The top two are already approved, and the bottom one is ISIS is almost approved as well. It's still in off 48 state. Now, these are drafts that are on the RFC queues with missed references. The tunnel end cap draft, the OSPF tunnel end cap draft, it shares an IANA registry with the IDR tunnel end cap draft. And that draft is finally moving along, and it's gotten through the working group and the chair, the shepherd and the chairs. I guess it's waiting with Albaro. We got both the two Yang models, OSPF and ISIS, are waiting on the missed reference to BFD, which is waiting on the missed reference to IETF MPLS. Now, here we go. We're almost done with all these. The bottom one is already in the HBIT is in the IESG review. That's coming up on the 12.5. And OSPF routing with cross address families, traffic engineering tunnels. It's already in off 48, isn't it? Yes, so that's almost done as well. And then the other two are just waiting on the RFC queue for the RFC editors to get to it. I'm sure they will soon after this large cluster of segment routing drafts. These two drafts, the two multi-attribute OSPF and ISIS encoding, the two drafts for handling application-specific attributes. Those are both in AD review. And we have publication. I think I just requested publication on these. So we had one problem here that when we simplified these drafts and went to prefix level, entropy level capability encoding, we negated the need for the BGPLS because we just used existing encodings from a different draft. So we sort of consolidated the BGPLS in both of those. And that's a good thing. It saves work for for all of us by having the BGPLS included in the IGP drafts. And we're going to try it. If it's simple, if it's a straightforward change, we're going to do that with future LSR drafts as well, include the BGPLS in the draft. And this is pretty much, both these are pretty much ready for working group last call. I think the invalid TLV handling, I guess there was one comment on the prefix originator we got since I put the status together that we need to handle. And I'm an offer on this one as well, and we'll talk about that offline. Get it in and have the working group review it, and then go into last call. The invalid TLV handling in ISIS, this was pretty much something that people had discussed between vendors, and it was needed for a long time. Thanks to Les for putting it together. This should probably, even though it's only been a working group document for one IETF, I think this should go to working group last call ASAP now that we've got a good review from a number of vendors. And here, flexible algorithms we covered today. All these Yang models are going to be covered on Friday, and update on the SRv6 ISIX extensions today. Dynamic flooding's covered today. Hierarchy. Let's see. Friday we're going to have Yang model updates, and then we have these two. I know that they recently covered, I believe it was Les's comments on the IGP extensions for PC EP security capability discovery using IGPs. And the last one has been pretty quiet. I'm going to have to check with offers to see what their intention is and if anybody's going to implement it. And here's a number of non-working group documents that the authors have asked in various and sundry manners to have adoption calls on. You probably saw, those of you who on the list, that we did start some discussions on the third one, the SRv6 enhancements to OSPF that correspond. You can map them directly to the ISIS ones that it's already a working group document. But the rest of these, we're going to kind of take them. And what I'd like people to do is the offers to initiate, just send the request to the list. Chris and I discussed these. We think this is the best way forward. Send the request for an adoption call to the list, and then we'll take a look at it and do them in that order. One thing we don't get enough of is we don't get enough discussion on the list. It seems like 1 week after the IETF and the 2 weeks leading up to the next IETF is when we get 90% of the discussion. So it'd be good to get more discussion on these drafts and do it on the LSR list. That's it. Anything to add, Alvaro? Okay. From your most productive working group?
From my most productive working group, I work with on a routing AD. I just want to ask the working group for a favor. Many of these, especially this slide, is about like ISS parity. So we already did it in one protocol, we're going to do it in the other protocol. That's great. I'm really happy about that. If the functionality is different, so you're doing, I don't know, just to pick on the first one, reverse metric for OSPF, because we already did it in ISS, so the functionality is different. Please highlight it somewhere, send an email to the list, and say that, so that when I review the draft, I don't have to ask you later, why is this different? Or why didn't you cover that other functionality? Because we're trying to do parity, it's nice that maybe the same functionality is there, maybe it's not possible, maybe it's not needed, whatever. Please do that. And to everyone in the working group, please read everything, all the documents. Just because we're doing parity doesn't mean that it's the same thing. It doesn't mean that if you read the other document, that one that we're doing now is the same or better. Thank you.
I'm going to back up just for a second.
Okay.
We didn't actually ask. Okay, so we were busy with the laptops and stuff. Didn't give anybody a chance to bash the agenda. So I'm going to put that up on the screen for a minute. Or not. Okay, so we're basically split into two sessions. The way we organized it was we left a little time in each day, because lately we've had a few different contentious things. We thought we were done with that, but we appear to be back in that area with the different area abstraction, TTs, so we've got some padding in this session, and then Friday we consolidated all the Yang models together and a few other presentations. If we have time, we could consider moving some of the non-Yang presentations if the people are here and ready. If anybody has an objection to that, please speak up. You can do it at the time we try to move it to. Other than that, I don't have any other. Does anybody have any agenda bashing to do? Okay, well then, Tony. We're looking for dynamic flooding. Okay, how did I get back to the? Is that you? There was a different screen that actually had everything on it.
Good afternoon. So update on dynamic flooding. Next slide, please.
Where'd the clicker go? Here.
All right. No changes since last IETF. The part that I did want to talk about is something of an implementation report. The Arista Networks implementation is now complete. This is gonna ship real soon now. 4.23.1F. It was supposed to ship November 8th. We're slipping. Oops. All of our testing is complete. All of our known bugs are fixed. We've simulated up to 5,000 nodes, and it's tedious, and it works. Quick static demo for you. This is a cut and paste off of a working implementation. Basically, we have a CLI command that shows you all of the nodes in the network and their index assignment. And then it shows you the paths that the area leader has distributed. In debugging, this is very tedious to work with, so we added another command that translates it into host names for you, so you can see all the paths in the topology. And that's about it. It just works. Any questions? Okay. And you can see all the stuff in the link state database too. All right. Turning now to hierarchical
Wait,
IS.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Have you found anybody to do interop testing with?
I have no interop testing yet. Call me.
It's AC Lindem, LSR chair. But you are doing, your implementation is the centralized model, right?
Correct.
So you have a proprietary algorithm, so it'd be hard to do interop testing with somebody else.
Not at all. Remember that the algorithm is only implemented by the area leader, and all
that's
the
right.
other domain, all of the
Okay.
other routers just follow. So if someone else has implemented even the following portion, we could interoperate. If they've also implemented the leader, we could just follow. So I was very hopeful, but I have not heard from anyone yet. All right, call me, maybe. All right. Turning now to hierarchical ISIS. Changes since last IETF. Last time we adopted, so thank you very much. And we have changed the name of the draft accordingly. We've added a few little things, nothing too major. We changed the area identifier TLV. We wanted to be sure to allow people to specify multiple identifiers for a particular area. And this is important because sometimes you need multiple identifiers if you're like changing your area assignments around and such. So you want to be able to enumerate multiple synonymous area identifiers. And we also changed it so that we described the entire set of areas that a particular router is implementing in a single TLV. So this compresses TLV space just a bit. We clarified the adjacency formation rules. This was just trying to make things that we all thought were motherhood and apple pie very explicit. No significant changes there. We observed that for LAN PDUs, we actually need more MAC addresses. And so we added an IANA request for more MAC addresses. Whee! And that is all of the changes for hierarchical ISIS. Any comments or questions?
Sure, I've got one.
Yes, sir.
So when I sort of thought about this, I figured you would do one net, as it were, and then like a longest prefix match, right? So in other words, you would divide the area, you would determine the level's area by each level would have a shorter number of bits.
You were one of the old timers who believes in hierarchical SNMPA allocation,
Yeah.
Or NSAP allocation. And I came from that school too. However, as of the last IETF, we took a poll of the working group and we came to the conclusion that we are now in the minority.
That's unfortunate.
Well,
I mean, the main reason I thought that it was more natural was for debugging, right? I mean, when you're trying to operate this in a network and you just have, a tag for every level, and then how do you know what's related to what?
well, that's why we made it very, very clear. We now have a tag for level, and we have to be very careful about saying what the identifier means at each level. Yes, the hierarchy is more explicit if you do it via NSAPs, but again, people don't want to do hierarchical NSAP allocation.
So could I throw a comment in as well?
Please.
Les Ginsberg. I don't know any deployment that I've ever seen where people define their nets in that manner. And in fact, there are some well-known mechanisms of assigning nets that don't follow hierarchy.
But there's no hierarchy in them at all right now, right? There's the system
never
ID,
was.
and the rest of it's an area, level 1 area. And if you're level 2, there is no area. Right.
That's not
That's
strictly true. There was supposed to be hierarchy in the NSAP allocation. It just never ever got deployed.
If you,
And with the
if you
death
wanna-
of CLNP, it no longer really matters. So
I mean, this is reminiscing a bit, but I mean, I first got involved with ISIS in the OSI space. And when I read the addressing document, I've forgotten the ISO number at the moment, but it hurt my head. So I don't blame people for not heading in that direction.
Well, I mean, I guess I kind of assumed that we wouldn't actually need to adhere necessarily to like the NSAP allocations that were created way back when, but there would be nothing wrong with actually using the hierarchy of the bits, right? So things hung together a little bit cleaner. I mean,
Well, I'm supporting what Tony is saying. I just, because that was something that we did discuss, and I just didn't think that based on practical experience, that from a deployment standpoint, that would appeal to customers.
Again, we took a poll in Montreal, and NSAP's lost.
So Tony,
Yes, sir.
coming from someone who has never implemented ISIs from scratch, the reason you're demuxing using MAC addresses, which seems kind of expensive, is because level 1 and level 2 doing it. So you're just following the same mechanism for demuxing.
Yes, exactly.
I don't know how I missed that poll, but did we get a feel for how many people polled were operators that said they wanted that?
I don't recall us getting into details in Montreal.
Okay.
There were a handful of hands for doing explicit areas and like 2 hands for doing NSAPs. And I think it was you and me.
All right.
So sorry, AC, was your question related to the new MAC addresses for the LAN PDUs?
Yes.
Okay, so
I mean, you could just use the packet header to do it, but
so I think the other reason for that is for legacy routers. They're going to receive, if you use the existing multicast MAC addresses, they're going to receive these PDUs and they're going to look at them and who knows what they're going to do. This was the same thing that happened when we did the multi-instance draft. We had that discussion and we eventually decided to use a separate MAC multicast address. So we followed the same thing here.
Any other comments? Very good. Thank you. Moving on. Next talk is about area abstraction, now renamed to area proxy. So we've had several changes. The first and most significant, we've had a layer 8 interrupt, non-maskable, non-returnable, not discussable. We're not allowed to collaborate. Sorry about that. It's not my choice, but it is what it is. We've made further simplifications to the draft. You may recall that one of the things we were doing was we were doing a heck of a lot of tunneling. We were tunneling all of the transit traffic. We were tunneling LSPs to get around having layer 2 holes on the inside area. We decided that was just way messy, and it would be much simpler and more straightforward if we simply said all of the inside area routers ran L1, L2, and all of the tunneling needs go away. So this simplifies everything. Now the entire area collapses to one layer 2 node, one level 2 node, and everything becomes very straightforward. We did add a router capability for area proxy. This turns out to be very useful to ensure that everybody inside the area is synchronized. We then advertise the area proxy system ID to indicate that the area proxy function should be active within the area. We did a bunch of work to expand the details of the text, and we are still seeking working group adoption. And that's all the changes. Any comments or questions?
Wes Ginsburg. So I have one comment, I guess, and one question. I find this, and I say this with all due respect, I find this to be a somewhat hacky solution in terms of the protocol. It doesn't seem to me to be very clean. I find it as conceptually, you're trying to run another instance of the protocol inside an existing instance in a way. And it depends upon defining this proxy system ID and making it consistent. So I'm not very comfortable with the draft as is. I'd like to see us have more discussion about whether this is a good solution to the problem space before we ask the question about working group adoption. That said, I have one mechanical question, which is, I don't believe you said anything in the draft about consistency. In other words, you could have, you've got a set of L1, L2 nodes that are going to participate in this proxy area. And they all have to agree upon the proxy ID for the area. You didn't say anything about how each of the nodes decides what they're going to propose as the proxy ID. And so I'm wondering what happens when the area leader goes down. Does everything flap?
So when the area leader goes down, presumably we have multiple area leaders enabled, and the multiple area leaders should all be configured with the same proxy system ID.
Okay.
Anything else is a misconfiguration. In our implementation, it already calls this out.
Okay, I could be wrong, but I don't think that is pointed out in the draft. That everybody has, in order for this to work without flapping, that everybody has to pick the same proxy ID.
I would, if it is missing, I would be more than happy to add that.
Okay.
Please send
Just-
mail.
yeah.
By the way, I appreciate you calling it a hack. That's fine. The only question in my mind is it the right hack?
Yeah, fair. That's fair.
So yeah, we've got a couple different things, but I just had some comments on this in particular. I'm still trying to understand why we're not just using BGP between ISIS instances in the data center. Like, I mean, I think that's just a more sane way to do this, right?
Okay, well, so the reason we didn't go down that path is that we didn't want BGP involved. This is supposed to be a simple IGP-based network and not trying to get autonomous systems involved in this. We just are trying to make the IGP more scalable. That is the entire goal here.
So, in that light, why not run two ISIS instances with redistribution? So in other words, what I mean by that is instead of using BGP, use a second ISIS instance to redistribute between data center ISIS instances.
You very much could. Again, you get into some danger with mutual redistribution. There are some concerns with many people had about that.
Well, I mean, yeah, I can see that, but I mean, if I like thinking about it as an operator, I've got to get my policies right so that I don't blow things up, or I have to try to debug this new protocol thing, which makes it kind of hard if there are problems, right? I mean,
It's trying to make it easier because of this configuration-wise, this is actually easier than multi-instance.
okay. Well, anyway, those are my thoughts.
Okay, appreciate it.
So we have sort of this very similar work. Well, any other questions on this particular?
All right, thank you.
Okay, so do you want to wait on? Do you want to present first, or
Yeah,
should?
that's what I think.
Okay.
That's the context better.
Yeah. We need to make a request to have that pop up in a second tab. So I'll go back. Hang on one second. There you go. Okay, you're up.
Hello everyone, I'm Huai Mo Chen from FutureWay. So today I'm going to talk about the TTZ. which is sort of for a topology transparent zone. You can see that we have a big group of people working on this TDZ for quite a few years. I think maybe we can see that 8 years. So we work on TDZ starting from 2011. So TDZ, basically we focus on a zone. A zone is a block of area. So in special case, it's the entire area. So in the beginning, we propose solutions to virtualize a zone as a single pseudo node. So you can see that in this picture, the zone just any block of area. So this area is abstracted into a single node. So during the process of this IETF, we can see from 2011 until now, 8 years has gone. So we propose different solutions. So one solution is we abstract a zone into a single node. We also propose a solution to abstract a zone into its edges fully connection. So for these two solutions, we also propose solutions to make a smooth transition or migration from zone to a single node, and also from a zone to its edges fully connection. So during this process, we have RFC 2099. So that's only contain a small part, which is the solution for abstracting a zone into its edges fully connection, and also smooth transitions between a zone and its fully connections. So for this, in the green part is what we standardized in OSPF. We can see that this is only small piece of the cake for the whole TDZ work. So we take us 7 years from start 2011 to 2017. So we achieve RFC 2099. But we have a big chunk of cake still there.
It's right on there, but it's 8099.
Yeah, 8099. Yeah, 8099. Yeah. And then we have the other piece of work, for example, our solutions, which is we abstract a zone into a single node in OSPF and in ISS, and also the solutions for smooth migration from a zone to a single node in ISS, OSPF, and also smooth transitions from a zone to its edges fully connection in ISS. So that's in the blue part. Those part is in the current draft, which is ISS TDZ. So here we just put a little bit of focus on the smooth migration between a zone and a single node. So we can see that, so originally we have a flat network. So we have a zone in the cloud side, which is marked as cloud. So we need to transfer that zone to a single node. So when we do this kind of transfer, so normally people like a smooth transfer. That means that we have minimum traffic interruptions. So here we have solutions to achieve that, because when we do the standardization for OSPF TDZs, so we have implementation, and then we can show that we can do the smooth migration between a zone and the zone's edges fully connection. So we can demo that we have minimum traffic interruptions for that smooth migration. So for those smooth migration, the basic idea can also be applied to the smooth migration between a zone and a single pseudo node. So the key here is that, so when we do this smooth migration, we can see that for the flat network, we have connections for that zone to the outside node, which is connected to the zone. So that's in the original network. After we migrate to a single node, so the connection is different. So the single node, the big node, will connect through that blue line to those adjacent nodes. So we should have smooth transition between the blue solid line and that black dashed line. So this smooth transition, the basic idea, we can also borrow that one from the smooth transition we already implemented. So that's roughly the about the smooth migration. And then because you see, we have a big group of people working on the IETF side. Also in the background, we have implementation for OSPF TTZ. We put a lot of effort there. And then, so here, the thing is present to those group of people. How should we move forward? So one thing is that we have area abstraction or area proxy. So that's one piece of work we can, I don't know whether it's move forward with that piece along. And then we have this whole big piece of work. Should we move also separately or should we merge together? So that's the question to all of us here.
So I wanted to ask, before this meeting, and before, as Tony pointed out, some of the edicts and whatnot were passed down, there was, people were working together. And Wemo, I think you said that there was a collaboration draft in GitHub?
Yeah. We work with Tony for a long time. And then we have, I built a GitHub, and then we shared it with a group of people. And then we have a draft, merger draft. But because we have for some reason, as Tony mentioned that in his presentation, there's 8 interruption. The cooperation is precluded. So that's
right. No. So what I'm very curious about is what state that collaboration draft is in. Because what stops us as a working group? I mean, first of all, assuming we even want to adopt this work, right? The abstraction of the area or zones. If we did, what stops us from just as a working group taking the existing collaboration draft and working on it as a working group? I mean, as a working group, we don't care about edicts, right? I mean, if the work is almost done.
Yeah, for me, it's no problem. I think from our side.
So is this a public repo that the working group could take a look at? Could you send a link to it?
Yeah, I think maybe because we work with Tony for that in the private shell GitHub. And so if we whether move forward with Tony, also need to agree, right?
So Tony Lee, Arista. So Chris, I'm sorry to say that I don't think we made a heck of a lot of progress on the collaboration anyway. So while I think you're welcome to look, I don't have read-or-write access, I think, anymore. But I don't think that there's a whole lot of value there above and beyond the drafts that are already out there.
Okay.
Hey, I'm Jayant, and I have 2 questions. First is like, if I convert this zone as a node, pseudo node, then how does this affect my LFA calculations, and can a node, like in the diagram between R1 and R2, can it calculate some PQ node or the other via this zone, or are there some restriction that is actually not clear in the draft? And my second question is, how about T database? You know, if I have an LSP going across this zone, so what is the bandwidth this pseudo node will propagate to the upstream?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So here we are working on the IP side and the IP layer. So provide the abstraction. So for those kind of LSP cross zone, that's at a high level. So during this process, you see we work for this one from 2011 to 2019, is 8 years. So we also propose drafts to talk about those issues. For example, how we build LSP cross zones. And we have some kind of draft posted. But because this one is not, you can see that we don't have much progress on this zone stuff. So that part, the other part for setup LSP crossing zone is stopped. So I think after this one standardized, we can just make it that draft alive again. I mean, those draft for crossing the zone in I think it's in the TIS group or in the MPLS group. There's some draft there.
And how about my first question?
Yeah. First, FMA, those kind are similar.
Okay.
So if this one is settled, and then we can work on that one. If you have interested, and then we can work together for resolve those tough issues. I think that one is also tough. It's a very tough questions or tough problems.
Thank you.
What else do you want to say about this?
Yeah. It's unfortunate to have two solutions. I mean, the drafts focus on different aspects of the problem, but they are very similar.
Yeah, agree, totally agree.
Yeah. So it's unfortunate. I don't know precisely how to move forward with this if we can't merge. We obviously.
Yeah, I have just a short, just simple question, because IETF is in public domain, right? I think maybe those lawyers or whatever they propose, we cannot do any cooperation. But I think from the IETF's term, also after on the entity list, Huawei on the entity list, I think there's some kind of policies. There's from IETF. My understanding is that because this is we can still cooperate in the public domain, right? Then because this one is not those kind of this technology is not belong to whatever export, whatever imports, those stuff.
Yeah, the IETF is an open organization.
Yeah, that's
correct.
right.
So I mean, I can throw out a few things process-wise. People don't always think about this, right? But when a working group adopts a document, right, it's no longer it's technically not really owned by the author anymore. It's owned by the working group. Typically, that's not an issue. The authors are happy and everything. But when working group adoption is like the working group is taking over ownership, and then the author becomes sort of a shepherd of the document at that point. And you generally listen to the author's direction because they're the person who made, created this work. But even if, and this is totally hypothetical, I'm not leaning towards anything, but even if we adopted, for example, Tony's draft, right? It would no longer be Arista's work. It would now become the IETF's work, right? That's outside of like the IPR claims. I mean, IPR claims are different, right? Now, Tony might immediately step down as author at that point. He's at the mic. Let's see.
Tony Lee again. So I think I should clarify the layer 8 interrupt context a little bit because I think it will prevent us from causing problems. And I am not a lawyer. I do not play one on TV. I don't know what I'm talking about. Okay? Take it with a grain of salt. That said, my understanding is that we are not allowed to have a private conversation about technology whatsoever. Okay? We can do anything we want inside this room, but we cannot step outside of this room and have a conversation. We can have a conversation on the mailing list, but we cannot go to lunch together. Okay? It's that simple.
That's actually a great clarification because I actually misunderstood when I talked to you. I thought it was more restrictive than that. So I think there's more than just you in this room probably has been given similar instructions. I mean, it's weird, crazy stuff that I certainly hate, but go, yeah.
Randy Bush, IAJ Anarchist. Is the other routing AD in this room? They should be. No disrespect, Alvaro. In the room. The problem is you're caught in this conflict because you're a co-author.
Yes, that's why I haven't actually said anything. But now that you brought it up, I'm going to say two things that I don't say often. One is that I need to obviously recuse myself from any discussion of this draft or whatever the working group is going to do with it, because I'm one of the authors with Raimo. I'm sure you two can, deal with whatever. And if you need any help, Martin or Deborah can help you with that. There are statements that the LLC put out this year, about precisely the open nature of the IETF. And both what you guys said, what Tony said, is actually what the statement says, meaning the IETF is an open organization. There's nothing that, according to the IETF legal team, precludes communication between participants on mailing lists, on open forums, on all that stuff. Having said that, I'm also not a lawyer, and all of you should talk to your own lawyers, right, about what you can do or can't do, or what you think you can do. The other thing that I don't say too often is that I'm going to agree with Les, in that I think that before we start adopting stuff, now I'm talking as a working member, we need to figure out, what is this something that we need? Is this something that we want? What are the characteristics of what we want? And then we can go and say, well, we have these two things. This satisfies this or doesn't satisfy that, and go from there. That's my suggestion as a working group member. But yes, you're completely right. Right now, we don't have another routing AD here, but as I said, the chairs can get Deborah or Martin to help whenever you need to. They had other conflicts.
So I think one another clarification. I think for all the authors, for example, me and Alvaro and Richard, were in FutureWay. So FutureWay is not on the entity list. So this is right. FutureWay in US is not on the entity list.
I mean,
Randy, again, you guys really get off layer 8 and above. The working group should decide whether to move forward in this subject area. If not, this discussion is useless.
Right.
If so, then the other routing AD needs to give you some guidance on how to move forward.
To Huimo's point, my lawyers were very explicit that they do not understand the difference, and I was cautioned and ordered to not collaborate.
Yeah, I understand. But from the law or whatever, FutureWay is not on the US entity list. Yeah, that's the law, right?
I understand the facts. I also understand the lawyers. Guess who pays my salary?
Okay.
So I think I was independently of what Randy said. I was thinking about this. We should start a discussion of the requirement of this, giving the pain it would, for other documents, we'd set a lower bar for adoption, but from this one, given the pain it's going to cost us, let's start a discussion of the requirement and how much this actually saves us.
Yeah, I think, and I'm sure that Tony, you've got some customer behind this request, but I would be very interested in hearing from operators, people that would be deploying this, right? Like, yeah, it would be nice to know how much want there is out there for it.
And again, we don't like, the working group doesn't like spending its time on this conflict. That's why we want to make sure that the requirement is strong enough to justify what we're going to, spending a lot of time in discussions that we could be spending on technical solutions. Thank you.
Is Tony P here?
he was. He just woke up. Come on.
Yeah, okay. Get one of these clickers so you guys see that?
As soon as I get half my pages,
Sure.
do certain things.
So just while we're getting it up, I just want to say, this draft isn't exactly the same as the other ones, but it solves a similar problem, and it does it without abstracting the area with tunnels. So AC said it all, but let me fill in the details. Okay. All right, so no lawyering, relative simple stuff. So we put that stuff out. I try to keep it relatively short. People who are interested, I'm sure, read the draft. So I won't be slaughtering you with details. I'll tell you what the problem is and what were the parameters that we were solving, and give very rough outline of the solution, which is actually embarrassingly simple. And then I hope for some discussion on the mic, and depending on that, I may call for adoption or not. All right. So so what is the problem? The problem is that some very big customers, Smiley, right? They are maxing in ISIS backbones the number of links at nodes. And even when you scale the implementation very, very well, you start to architecturally hit basically protocol limitations, right? In terms of like flooding rates, how much can you really put into ISIS and compute over it? So, some possibilities are to forklift the protocol. There's some suggestions here. And the other limitations that these customers are hitting is that IGPs are kind of this one hub, multiple spokes model, right, which limits them. So the spokes are good for access. So it's good to scale an access network that way. But if you really, what you have is a backbone that goes really, really big, then this model is not particularly good for it, right? Because we did not build areas as transits, just like BGP does ASs as transit. IGPs were built architecturally different. I'm just describing the problem these people are hitting without passing any judgment, right? They have a tool, they try to fit it, they try to get something done, they go like, ain't working. And the other trend that we observe is that traditionally IGPs were built for something which were relatively sparse meshes, and that's why we picked up the Dijkstra. Dijkstra behaved much better on sparse stuff, right? Bellman Ford is much better on dense, but we said, like, who's gonna get dense? Yeah, well, guess what? Customers are running dense clusters now. So they basically go into architecture where things are more what you call cliques, or on some kind of regular meshes, and that is just tons of links, which loads computation, flooding, and so on and so on. The other thing when they started to play with areas was what they didn't like is that if they start to abstract pieces of the topology and hide the topology, then they lose path diversity, even if they're doing some kind of hacks trying to transit through these areas, right? You start to hide L1, and then your forwarding starts to follow strictly just L2 on the backbone. So now where are all the L1 paths that you have around? So that, we did some kind of thinking. We saw the stuff for the last couple of years, did a couple of thinking, tossed a lot of things around. And then the customer, of course, will not accept any solution, right? They have lots of other properties, which are anything from technical to political and operational, anything in between, right? So what they basically wanted is scale me the backbone without triggering the control plane scale limitations. That's really what they wanted, right? Somehow remove the control plane scale limitation, give me much more scale on the backbone. And they want many more smaller boxes, which kind of aggravates the problem, also leads to the dense meshes. They go like, I don't want these huge boxes, which look like a single box. I want more and more like small boxes I'm slapping together, but then I need a lot of links in between them, so I'm hitting even faster these control plane limitations. And then, yes, seriously, no, please do not forklift the protocol. We love you all, but flag days are something we hate, from long operational experience. So give me something where I don't have to forklift the protocol. Tony? Yep.
You mean like Rift?
But see,
So I'm not here to talk about Rift, but I can tell you how Rift plugs into the stuff. Actually, I won't tell you. You'll figure out in a couple of years, okay? I don't have to be right now. I just have to be, I have to be able in a couple of years to tell you over beer, I told you so, okay? Now, all right. So, but no, Rift is neither here or there. I'm not talking about Rift. So they also wanted a very simple, robust configuration. So please do not load me with hugely complicated operational model where I have to provision everything, just so, okay? And then go look for troubles. No proprietary solutions, okay? And they didn't want any kind of centralized point of failures, right? So just please not build me something where you want something centralized where you store some states and the thing can blow up and next thing will be reinventing NSR. So, okay, so it has to be fully distributed solution. Yeah, we like them. They're extremely robust. And then what they also wanted was, well, but at the end, if you scaled it up, I still want my optimal traffic engineering. Like, yeah, well, that's hard again, right? You want it abstracted, but then you want the full thing to do all the optimal path selection. Like, okay, everything's impossible, so let's go and raft through a lot of different solutions. And the TTZ stuff was around and so on, right? All right, so what's the outline of the solution? So play somewhere in these directions. People were poking around here, but basically having looked at a lot of things and played and tossed up, flood reflection, which is really a knockoff of route reflection, seems to meet the bill actually surprisingly well with all these impossible requirements. So basically what you do is you pick 3 colors, right? 3 colors are good. So you take a piece of the backbone and you make it an L1. Right, so this is this red box. And outside are the L2 guys. So the L2 is blue. But now instead of sticking everything into L1, L2, which blows out your L2 scale again, you just pick up a bunch of nodes and make them reflectors. So they're in the blue. And the thin lines are tunnels, because now those L2 nodes are not necessarily directly connected, right? So you pick up some kind of tunneling, who cares? And you flood over those tunnels. So your L2 flooding topology starts to look like multiple stars. So that has much better scaling properties than full meshes. It gives you still redundancy. It doesn't give you any single point of failures because this is still fully distributed, you know, ISIS. And I'll talk about that stuff later. Now, so how do you transition through this thing? So the guys on the L2, on the outside, they see those 2 stars. So if you're kind of naive, all the forwarding will go through these tunnels. Like, duh. So first you go forward through the tunnels, these L2 tunnels, which could be okay or not. But then everything kind of bunches out in those tunnels and these route reflectors become like forwarding choke points. Like, yeah, great, you scaled up your control plane, but you just killed my data plane. And if some of this L1 topology is somewhere outside of this L2 path, the capacity will never get utilized. So you lose all the path diversity of you know, underlying network. So like, duh, no, that doesn't help. Well, so you have to change the SPF on the incoming leaves. And what they basically do is, underneath, you don't have to do that, but I described the simplest possible solution. The orange colors are all L1 forwarding tunnels, which are invisible to the L2 outside. So you still have a full mesh in the L1, right? And the guys on the edges, when the L2 traffic comes in, they basically shortcut through these L1 tunnels. That's actually a fairly simple SPF modification. So they look whether the L2 route that they compute goes through a flood repeater. What do we call it? We call them reflectors, flood reflectors. We changed the language a couple of times. So the flood reflector adjacency, if this is so, then you don't use it, or there's a couple of solutions. But basically, you don't use that for forwarding. You shortcut to your exit through the L1. And you can also shortcut this thing. So I'm not showing it here, but the blue leaves, the client, reflector clients, can actually also have a direct link, and then you forward along this direct link. That works just fine.
Tony?
Yeah.
So there's really 2 parts to this. There's the flood reflector to reduce the flooding in L2.
Yeah.
But you could have done what Tony evolved to and got rid of the tunnels and just made everything in the L1 and L1, L2.
No, there's even a cleverer
You could-
solution,
you
but
could-
read
you
the
could have done
draft.
it.
I mentioned the stuff.
But
So-
you could have done that without doing the tunneling.
You can do something even more smarter than that, but you have to read and think about it. Okay. So this is the simplest. This is the simplest variant. It works like a charm for practical purposes. Okay. Now the nice thing is that what you're really lifting are only those leaves and the reflectors, and the configuration in most extreme case is just local in the interface on this tunneling interface. Right? And the people and the L2 people outside are completely oblivious to what's going on. And most of these L1 nodes, you don't have to lift them either. Right? So you really have a minimal lift. And you can do it partially, because that will also work if some of these people are not even client. So that's the outline of the solution, right? So what we put on is, now you don't want to misconfigure this thing in the sense that you start to build really weird stuff. We saw that has been done with BGP route reflectors and led to a lot of problems. So we stuck this indication, which cluster ID are you on the IIH, and whether you're a client or reflector. And we have very strict adjacency forming rules. We killed off flood reflector hierarchies. Route reflector hierarchies are a beautiful thing to behold if you run operationally into problems with them. We also killed what people tend to do is in the same cluster to build horizontal links between reflectors. But those are relatively simple rules that we can argue about. I mean, if people want to work on the draft and they feel strongly we should have a hierarchy, well, it can be made to work, right? What we had was people asking us for the maximum simplicity, like, foolproof, almost impossible to misconfigure. That's where we were leaning towards. So like I'm saying, this orange L1 tunnel mesh is optional. That's more advanced discussion. So what's the big deal? Well, you only have to lift the flood reflectors and the clients, okay? And they actually only need local configuration knobs, because you don't really even, well, so we also put the discovery, the cluster discovery, not only on IHs, but we also advertise it on the links. So you can figure out, what is the route reflector topology, but you don't have to look at the stuff. And you can actually even implement it without advertising anything. Just as a local configuration knob on a router, like this goes to my flood reflector. The whole thing allows you to scale the L2 control plane in a roughly linear fashion, right? So you don't have the n square of full L2 tunnel meshes, which practically speaking gives you a very, very long runway for very little work. Right, so what you get out is this L1, but actually the L1 doesn't have to be L1. So this leads to further thinking. If you abstract these things as L1, you can run another protocol. So you can run OSPF underneath as L1, and you can run L2 with flood reflection, ISIS on top, which gives you interesting properties in terms of like faith sharing in a protocol. So, you don't have to, but it gives you this degree of freedom. So when L2 runs with these flood reflectors, nevertheless, it uses all the L1 path diversity in the topology underneath, which is really what you really want, right? Because that's how you scale up the bandwidth. This is, they make better and better fools every year. That's why we're still working, right? But this is as foolproof as fools come these days. I'm sure they invent better fools that will break the stuff. But, as far as we could, we basically wrung out anything that can be misconfigured or lead you into interesting, problems, which I think we understand fairly well because we went the whole BGP route reflector curve. And it was actually extremely educational. All right, and so it's KISS, right? And everybody knows what it means. So yeah, sorry. It's not as complicated as thing tends to be these days in IGP, but it seems to have a pretty good runway for what people are looking for.
I have a question, Tony. AC, Lindum, Cisco Systems. So on these tunnels.
Which ones? The L2
L1,
or L1?
L1 tunnels.
Yeah.
You're not running the adjacencies over there, over the tunnels as well.
Yes, you have.
You are.
have
You're not. Oh, I was going to
Yes,
ask if you're doing
because you compute
right,
L2, and then underneath you have the L1.
Right,
well,
right. So
you better do.
Yes,
You know what I mean.
I do. You know what I mean.
Could
That's why
you could
didn't
get
say that.
without.
Yeah.
but the draft says you better do, okay? For a lot of practical purposes, we saw in deployment, like nothing as ugly as a broken tunnel over which you try to forward happily, right? So yeah, we suggest people do.
You could use BFD, but
Yes, so this is this degree of flexibility of L1, or you can run the right protocol in L1, right? Which makes it ZTP if you do it correctly.
you mean BGP SPF?
BGPF, yes, obviously,
Yeah, so,
with a controller. Yeah.
so a lot of these topologies, when I was thinking about them as presented, you know, the clause, data center fabric connected by things, wanting to transit the data center or whatever, sort of, you can also start thinking about it as like a partitioned L2, right? And
This is
so
literally
as soon as
partitioned
it's-
L2.
Right, no, and
Yes.
so when you're suggesting level 1 virtual links, right, to correct the partition in L2. It's another way of modeling this. I think what this
Yeah.
is getting at, though, is that if people are interested in this, let's keep talking about it.
Right. So yes, I mean, the nasty way to talk about it is say, well, you're reinventing virtual links again.
Yeah,
Yes, with a flavor.
yeah, that's what I'm
All right.
thinking. When I'm
Well, I mean, look, if you're really paranoid, you don't need the L2 tunnels. You can put this thing one hop away.
Right. Or you can make them, like Tony was, make them all the level 1 routers L1, L2.
Yeah, but then you lose the L2 scalability. Then you just kill the baby. That's the problem. Well, that's how we started, and they say, well, we still all the routers are in L2s. Like, you didn't solve our scale problem.
But the most any router has is what you have at the edges, which is the subset of one L1 and L2. You don't have all the other L1s
No, you
because you
do.
aggregate them, right?
No. If you look at the stuff, because the way people build these meshes, they're bisectional, means that you end up with all the routers in L2 again. Otherwise, the problem wouldn't exist. Okay.
Tony Lee.
Tony.
The way we are doing things, while it puts everything into L2, the L2 information about the inside area does not leave the inside area. And this is absolutely key because it means that when we actually abstract things, we effectively take it out of the level 2 link state database for the rest of the network. Okay, so if I've got an area and I've got 1,000 routers in it, I've just taken those 1,000 routers out of the network.
You see, I was thinking of AC again. I was thinking of in the OSPF term where you would leak them into the area as opposed to into the non-backbone area. Which
What would you
then the maximum you ever have you'd have one L1 area and L2, and the L2 stuff would be aggregated. Are you saying you couldn't satisfy the traffic engineering requirements if you do any aggregation of the L1
No,
areas?
how do you preserve all the diversity of the traffic? Look, if you hide, the problem is that, yes, obviously you can abstract this L1 and show something on the edges, but you don't know how much diversity you get out of it. Okay.
If you want diversity, then we're talking back to traffic engineering, and your traffic engineering mechanisms like BGP-LS are highly applicable. Okay, you cannot have both abstraction and detail at the same time. It doesn't work. Right?
Well,
and for our purposes right now in scaling the IGP, we need the abstraction. We have
well, no, yes and no. So this gives them the abstraction without losing the diversity, and with the BGP-LS that they take out of L1 and L2 on the controller, they can do full path computation. Yes, I cannot do optimal distributed TE, whatever solution we take. I mean, that, like you say, you hide it, it's controlled lying, right? So what I'm telling people, well, you need to run BGP-LS and take everything from the L1s and the L2 in the controller, and you have to do optimal computation that way. But at least you don't forklift, it's a standard mechanism. We have those controllers built that do that actually today already. So, what's the problem?
So why not just abstract everything? That's the answer.
Because then you forklift too much stuff. That's the first thing. And second, look, so simple observation. When you run the abstract node, you end up basically build a chassis again, because this area leader starts to take in a lot of state to synchronize the same way as a routing engine in a router synchronizes line cards. And the next thing you built NSR between the two of them. And then you just reinvented the chassis in a different way. And there was a big no-no, right? They don't want any kind of centralized thing when one thing failing can affect it. And Les gave you the first layer of the onion. There's like 12 underneath. But I mean, perfectly fine, you build it, and then we talk. And maybe I'm wrong, and we'll see.
Code in progress. So what we've seen is that when we do this, it's relatively straightforward to create the abstraction, that forklifting everything is not necessary, just the things that are going to use this new hack, and it's relatively straightforward.
Well, but I mean, we agree that this is forklifting less, or maybe not. Okay.
So I mean, back to my comment about the redistributing routes. Tony, you mentioned that it can be dangerous. I'd be interested. I mean, maybe we can mitigate that danger. Like if maybe it's worth exploring a small protocol extension that allows otherwise using normal already deployed things like multi-instance with redistribution. With a little bit of extra information there to keep us from, like the down bit when we went, there could be a way that we could look at this and just keep the danger from redistribution from arising.
Les Ginsberg. So we do have the R bit now, as far as signaling that a route has been redistributed in some way. Plus, we have the X bit to indicate that it's external. It came from another protocol, which could be another ISS protocol instance. That said, I don't think the big danger with widespread redistribution has to do with the protocol itself not figuring out that this particular route was redistributed. It's that, well, you got redistribution on router A and you got redistribution on router N at the other end of the network, and they get misconfigured and things go circular.
All right. So I mean, since that seems to be a particular area of interest, let me lose a sentence or two. With the up-down bit, we have everything that is enough to make that stuff work without tunnels. Point. We know it.
Yeah.
And then what more do you want? This is like Goldilocks, right?
I keep scratching my head. Like, why don't we do this now?
But you're just admitting that you can make it work without the tunnels at the only expense. You may not take the optimal entry point into the.
Yeah, well,
yes.
yes.
You're right.
Right.
That's the only caveat.
Yes, that is a caveat which, I mean, we can argue now, depends of the wall in graph theory. If you start to abstract in any way, there's no bloody way. And that's what I tell people when they want TE with absolute optimal, they have to take the full topology into the controller, flat, make it flat, and run the computation flat. And that works as well, but it has a cost, right? I'm not a magician. I cannot abstract topology and expose all the topology again, right? Without actually even forklifting the protocol on top, right? Yes, so absolutely. I mean, there we hit just a hard boundary.
John Scudder, brief follow-up to Chris's point about redistributing. Yeah, you can have everything you want. All you have to do is reinvent BGP. Please don't reinvent BGP. We've already got one.
Don't taunt them. They may do that.
They don't like BGP. I already said that at the very beginning, right?
Yeah, so I don't think this is as simple as you make it sound.
Well, that's a feeling by yours. I'm here to talk technical reality. So give me technical arguments, please.
So what's simple is the protocol extensions, which are very minimal.
Yeah, okay.
I think what gets to be complex is the implementation of the changes.
In which sense?
And the deployment. Well, you haven't talked at all, and I don't think you've talked at all in the draft. And granted, it's V0, so there may be more coming, but you haven't talked at all about the draft, about the population of the route reflectors and the distribution of the information to the clients. And you just said, well, it happens.
In which sense you mean? Because we don't modify flooding procedures at all. There is nothing there to mention. It just floods like L2 floods. There is no modification flooding procedures whatsoever.
So again, I think you're talking, you're 100% correct as far as protocol extensions, but that doesn't mean that the code that's running inside the boxes is the same.
So what argument are you making? That you want a solution without any implementation?
No,
That, you know,
I'm just
that's-
saying, you know, it's a little bit of false advertising to say, look, all I did was define a tiny little TLV so that the
Les, you are
the clients and
slandering
the
right
servers-
now. I don't hear a technical argument, sorry. Bring me a hard technical argument which piece is not described.
I'm
Okay.
just saying putting KISS up there isn't a technical argument either.
Yeah, okay, I take that. All right, so that's advertisement. I take the KISS. Yeah, that's absolutely valid. So let's drop the KISS. But I think the draft tells you everything that is necessary to implement that stuff. Yes, SPF is modified. We describe it. Okay. There's multiple solutions actually to implement it. So you can modify SPF in 3 or 4 different ways. So we just outlined one way how we can implement it. Flooding procedures is 0 modification, literally. Otherwise, you know, we would be forklifting. The TLVs can be ignored on the outside safely, actually even inside if you implement local configuration knobs. If you find holes, more than happy. I'm more than happy to invite you to participate on the draft and then iron the stuff out, or roll me the technical arguments, because I'm not foolproof. We may have missed a hole that size. We're very confident we didn't, but hey, we know this is arcane and very difficult art, right? So technical arguments more than welcome.
Okay, thank you.
Was lively enough. So, yeah, I think at this point in time, it wasn't hostile enough. I think I'll call for adoption.
Here, I can solve that. How many have read the draft?
Yeah,
How many people
few.
understood the draft? Non-offers. Yeah, I read the draft,
But you didn't understand it?
I'm appreciating more of it after I've seen the present. Every time I appreciate it a little more, you know, when you thought I was just repeating what you were saying, I was making sure I understood it.
Yeah, well, I mean, people accuse me that I write too much, so I've wrote less. So now they accuse me that, you know, like, so.
So as AC mentioned a minute ago, this is also working on the same sort of problem. So I like the energy now. Can we take this energy to the list? I don't think we should be calling for adoption on any of these drafts yet. But if we could keep this energy going and maybe argue about the solutions on the list, maybe we can relook at the adoption idea next meeting. What do you think, AC?
Yeah, I think that's a good thing. Hopefully, we'll hear from, like you had said, the operators on the requirement to do this. There's also going on at the same time, if we can get the flooding reduction, if that's, you know, it really mitigates the problem. And I actually think that's less complex than these area abstractions.
Hope to a response.
Yeah, I did.
No, I mean, I did.
For my money, the air abstraction and the flooding reduction are orthogonal, and both are necessary.
That's why they both use the same leader election.
No, that's a common useful mechanism that should have probably been in
I was
the
going to pick
protocol
on you
from day
offline
one.
about this.
I agree they're orthogonal. I was just saying whether or not we need the area abstraction given the complexity, and yours isn't. You did drop the KISS for the flood reflectors too. I actually think it would be good for your draft if you put the different. You said there's 4 or 5 ways. If you put those alternatives and how to do it without the tunnels, because I think the tunnels. This
Yeah,
is just
okay.
speaking as a working group
Please
member.
join someone, and then, well, you know, I get the stuff adopted where I run all the stuff out. If I don't get it adopted, like, I may as well just let it sit and expire. Thank you very much. Right? So yeah, I mean, if that gets adopted, yes, that's perfect. The other very, very valid discussion is, should we build hierarchies, right? Which I killed. But if, well, there's a certain runway that you get with this, right? If you build hierarchy of rod reflectors, it's pretty much infinite size, but there's a certain size. You can go with that. We think the practical runways from what we saw is about, you can 5x the scale. So they already an insane scale. So they get like 5x insane with something very simple without forklifting. So that's pretty cool. And what we saw with that is that if you do this, you pretty much don't need flood reduction, right? Because that kills all these highly dense things, right, into relatively simple stars. So like current flooding is good enough as far as we saw. So yeah, so absolutely, we can work all the stuff out, but there's only interest from our side if we get the stuff adopted, and we get enough people to work on the stuff and chew through the details, because we know the stuff. We don't have to write it down, right? And then who cares? If you don't care, well, then why should we put the work? But that's neither here or there. So I think I'm pretty much at the end of my spiel. Everybody woke up, and now they can go back to snooze. More questions, uncertainties, doubts? Flowers? No? Chocolate? Nothing? Yeah. Tomatoes? Yeah.
All right.
Good. Thanks.
Tony. Peter. But are we clapping because he sat down, or? Just such an odd reaction. Update to SRv6 and flex algos. Sorry, it takes me so long to get these.
Okay, so I'm Peter. I'm going to change the subject a little bit, and I'm not going to talk about any tunnels or transit areas anymore. So I'm going to give a quick update on the SRv6. The only change that happened to the draft from the last version is that we moved the A flag from the locator options or flags, and we added it to the prefix attribute flags, because the prefix attribute TLV or sub-TLV is supported inside the locator. So there's no functional change. We only moved it, and we said I'll use the prefix attribute flag sub-TLV to advertise the A bit. We also specify what the A bit should do. We said that it should be preserved when leaked. We said that when the A flag is set, the N flag should not be set or must not be set, and what to do if it is set. Basically, we ignore the N flag if the A flag is set. And we also said that if there are multiple routers advertising the prefix or locator, and one advertising the A flag, the other one doesn't, we should consider the prefix or locator to be anycast anyway. So that's the only change in the draft from the previous version. The document has been pretty stable. There are multiple implementations. Question is this ready for a last call? So that's something the authors believe could be at that state at the moment.
So I think I think a good thing to do would be to start a dialogue. Just ask if everybody's read this and we think we're ready for last call. It'd be good to you could have to be removed at publication, add this implementation status to the draft.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, just to get an idea
Okay.
of people who are willing to let it know that they've implemented it. I think that'd be good.
Okay.
Yeah. And I haven't read the recent version. I don't think I've read it for about a year. So I think, and Chris, you read it recently?
I did read the diff.
The diff. Oh, the diff. Okay. Yeah. I want to read it from start to scratch as well.
The only thing which we added was the structure sub-TLV and then this.
So we'll have a ready for working last call.
Last call. Okay. Yeah. Sounds good.
Yeah. So why don't you put the implementation status in, and then like AT mentioned earlier, just send a public thing requesting last call, and then we'll do it.
Okay, will do.
Okay, so your next one. The flex algo. Flex. There we are.
Okay, so the next is the flex algo draft. So there are two changes in the draft from the previous version. First is more mechanical change, where previously in the ISIs and OSPF per application link attributes draft, there was an X bit, which means the application is flex algo. We basically took that bit out of that draft and moved it and defined the bit with the exactly same semantics in the flex algo draft. There's no functional change. The reason we did this is because we didn't want to have the dependency of the ASLA drafts, the per application link attribute drafts on the flex algo draft itself. So that's why we moved the bit to the flex algo draft. And we discovered one problem in the flex algo specification, which we are now trying to fix in this revision of the draft. So here I give you an example where we have two areas or domains, and we have the right one and the left one. So we have the prefix 111/32, and here are the links with the metric, IGP metric of 10, and flex algo metric, which could be delay or anything else, being 100. And the definition of the algo says remove any link which is red. So what would happen, and there's no link between the R2 and R3 in any of those domains or areas. So what the R2 and R3 routers would do, they would advertise the prefix, and so in the previous version of the draft, we defined what we call a flex algo specific metric or flex algo prefix metric. Even without this, basically what happens is that the R1 will still believe he can reach the prefix 1111 in a flex algo 128 via R2, but R2, because the link he has in the right area is not participating or is excluded from the calculation, he would actually calculate the pass via the left area, and there we have a loop. So we defined, as I said, the flex algo specific metric previously, but even that doesn't solve the problem, because the previous version of the draft says if the advertisement of the prefix doesn't have the flex algo specific metric, fall back to the IGP metric. So the R1 would still believe that there is actually even a better pass via R2 because the IGP metric is lower and would cause a loop again. The problem really is we have no way of saying, or we had no way of saying, don't use me for flex algo 128 pass, but you can use me for algo 0 pass. Because the reachability is basically taken from the algo 0, and that's why the prefix is advertised. So to fix that problem, what we say is that when the ABR or ASBR advertises or redistributes or leaks the prefix between the areas or levels, it must set the flex algo specific metric. And then anyone computing the destination for the flex algo for the prefix must use this flex algo specific metric. And if the prefix doesn't have it, it's basically unreachable. So this way we kind of make the announcement of the reachability per algo. Well, obviously this only works if the algo has the flex algo prefix metric as it's one of its part of the flex algo definition. So that way we fix the problem. The question is, what do we do if we don't use the flex algo prefix metric as a flex algo definition attribute? In that way, what the draft says is it's not recommended to use it for inter-area or inter-domain prefix reachability, because it can actually cause loops or black holes. If people feel this is not strong enough language, we can even say we are not allowed to compute the inter-domain or inter-area pass if we don't use the flex algo specific metric. It's up to the discussion. I'm open for the suggestion which way people want to go, but basically we have to somehow let people know that without this mechanism, it may actually cause some of these issues.
So just a second, Peter, let me restate that. So the advantage of not doing a hard prohibition of this is you could use flex algorithm within one area, but still forward the prefix through other areas using the default, right? That's the advantage. But the problem is in certain topologies, somewhat pathological with this kind of configuration, you could have loops.
Yes, that's the issue is you don't know whether the ABR or ASBR has the reachability for the prefix for that algorithm itself. Yeah. Okay, so those are the two changes we made. Implementations are already available. We are continue to enhance them. So I'm not asking for last call yet. So.
Tony P. Juniper. Hey, Peter. So I think even if you forward between the inter-area default, you may still end up looping because you cannot mix and match, right? If you forward default between inter-area, it relies that it brings it to some exit which is based on shortest metrics. When it brings into funny out, which uses default again, you may end up in a loop, but I'll need a napkin to go and draw around the stuff. It's just, you can't take shortest path and start to mix it, what you choose in which part of topology and hope that the thing somehow connects at the end. It's very pathological, right?
But OSPF, you always use the intra-area route over inter-area route, always.
Yes, and it's the same in SIS.
I see. Okay, yeah. Sorry, missed that one.
It's
yeah, I take
same.
it back. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Yeah. Do you want to try to move something, or should we wrap it up?
Remember, we said we have some non-Yang presentations. We have both Les's and Arjun's that are non-Yang. I see Les is here. And I see Bruno's here, isn't he? Yeah, Bruno's here too, so.
I kind of want to leave that one on Friday.
Oh, you do? Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So, and
We already had one fight today, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's not a fight. I like to get back off that. One contentious.
well, should we just leave them both then? Or
Yeah, let's.
okay.
I don't know. Just I don't have a strong feeling, but if we. People may have that was my worry about moving it, was that people might have been targeting a specific session to come to. Okay, then I think we're done today. Yes. All right. Thanks, everybody. See you Friday. More clapping.
Yeah.
Are we going to become a clapping working group?
Yeah. There's some homework too, reading the.
I'm not against it. Oh, it's so stoic. Has it been like made dark and cynical? Enough time. I tried to take some notes and even had time doing that. So I hope she took some private minutes.
Oh, she does when people go to the mic, not during the presentation.
No, I'm just, there was nothing.
But you didn't see anything. Oh.
But hopefully we got a recording too, if not. Thank you.